The man posing as a police officer had my wife in handcuffs and was shoving her toward an unmarked white van when my phone rang with a call from my neighbor. Two other men wearing black, sleeveless tactical vests stood nearby, watching the street, while the one with metal badge clipped to his belt forced my wife, Sarah, into the vehicle. He told her she was being detained for HOA violations. My name is Parker. I am 38 years old, and I serve as a SWAT operator with the Tucson Police Department. I have 12 years of experience in tactical law enforcement. The fact that my wife was being abducted by criminals pretending to be authorities was about to become the worst mistake those men would ever make. I was at the station when my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, called me directly. Her voice was shaking. Parker, 3 men just took Sarah. They said they were HOA enforcement and that she was under arrest. They put her into a white van and drove off. I got the license plate. I didn't hesitate. I immediately notified my sergeant and gave him the plate number. Within minutes, the entire SWAT team was being mobilized. This was no longer some fake HOA dispute. This was a kidnapping involving the family member of a law enforcement officer, and every available resource was being activated to find Sarah and bring down whoever had taken her. Our tech unit ran the license plate right away. The van was registered to a shell company, listing an address in a warehouse district on the east side of town. Traffic cameras and surveillance feeds showed the van arriving at that location just 18 minutes after Sarah had been taken. We had a destination. We had a target. Commander Hayes gathered everyone in the briefing room. "We have a kidnapping involving Officer Parker's wife," he said. 3 suspects, possibly armed, claiming HOA authority. They transported Mrs. Parker to a warehouse location. We are executing an immediate tactical entry to recover the victim and apprehend all suspects. This is a rescue operation. Rules of engagement are standard, but understand we have an officer's family member in danger. My team leader, Lieutenant Rodriguez, pulled me aside before we rolled out. "Parker, you're coming with us," he said firmly, "but you follow my orders exactly. I know this is personal. That's why you stay with me, and you do not go tactical unless I authorize it." I looked him in the eye and nodded. "Understood," I said. Every instinct in my body wanted to be the first one through that door, but Rodriguez was right. Discipline and training mattered more than emotion, especially when Sarah's life depended on us doing this the right way. 12 minutes later, our convoy of armored tactical vehicles staged 2 blocks away from the warehouse. Drone surveillance confirmed 3 suspects inside, and 1 female matching Sarah's description. The interior looked like some kind of makeshift operations center. There were computers set up, filing cabinets lining the walls, and structures that looked disturbingly like holding cells. Commander Hayes gave the order: execute entry, rescue priority, apprehend all suspects. Our team hit the building with overwhelming force. Flashbangs detonated. Multiple entry points were breached simultaneously. Total surprise. The suspects had no time to react. Within 40 seconds, all 3 men were on the ground and secured. The man who had handcuffed Sarah, the one with a name tag that read Chief Enforcement Officer Briggs, was face down in zip ties before he even understood what was happening. I pushed past the cleared rooms and found Sarah in the back of the warehouse, locked inside a chain-link enclosure. She was terrified, but she wasn't hurt. I cut the restraints they had put on her and pulled her out as the rest of the team continued to secure the scene. "Parker, I'm okay," she said as she wrapped her arms around me. "They said I violated HOA parking rules and that I was being detained for processing. They brought me here and locked me in that cage. I kept asking for a lawyer, and they just ignored me." I held her tight. "You're safe now," I told her. "We have them, all of them." But as our team searched the warehouse, it became clear that this was far bigger than a simple HOA scam. Detective Morrison arrived and began cataloging what we found. There were files on more than 40 families across Tucson, detailed surveillance photographs, home layouts, daily schedules, vehicle details, even bank account information obtained through hacking. This wasn't just extortion. This was organized crime, using fake HOA enforcement as a cover for something much darker. The holding area where Sarah had been kept showed signs that at least 6 other people had been held there recently. We found personal belongings, IDs, and carefully written ransom demands. These criminals weren't just issuing fake fines. They were abducting people, imprisoning them, and demanding money from their families for their release. Morrison went over the evidence with a grim expression. "Parker, your wife walked straight into a kidnapping and extortion ring," he said. "They've been using fake HOA violations as an excuse to grab people, bring them here, and hold them until families pay. We have proof of at least 6 other victims in the last 3 months alone." The suspects were identified quickly. Richard Briggs had prior convictions in Arizona and Nevada for kidnapping and extortion. Jason Whitmore had a criminal history that included human trafficking and organized crime. Stephen Torres had served federal time for racketeering. The FBI was notified immediately. This was federal kidnapping. Agent Sarah Chun took lead on the case and began reviewing everything we had recovered. She immediately requested additional resources. "This operation has been active for at least a year," she said. "Multiple states. We're already seeing evidence tied to Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. This just became a major organized crime investigation." The warehouse computers told the rest of the story. They revealed a sophisticated operation built around fear, deception, and false authority, showing just how far these criminals had gone under the guise of enforcing HOA rules. Their method was calculated and methodical. They researched affluent neighborhoods, singled out residents who appeared vulnerable or who clearly owned valuable assets, and then fabricated HOA violations as a pressure tactic. When victims hesitated or refused to pay immediately, the criminals escalated to physical detention. Anyone who resisted or tried to fight back was kidnapped outright and held until their families paid ransoms that ranged from $50,000 to as much as $200,000. Sarah was chosen because our neighborhood did not even have an HOA, and they assumed she would not know how to verify whether their claims were legitimate. When she demanded credentials and threatened to call the police, they made a decision to detain her on the spot. What they never anticipated was that she was married to a SWAT operator with the authority, training, and resources to mobilize a full tactical response within minutes. That single miscalculation unraveled their entire operation. Agent Chun coordinated with multiple FBI field offices across the region. Together, they identified 17 victims across 3 different states who had been kidnapped using this fake HOA enforcement scheme. Most of those victims had paid the ransom and were released under threats of retaliation if they ever spoke to law enforcement. 3 families had reported loved ones missing. But until this case, local agencies had not connected the incidents into a single organized pattern. The federal case took 6 months to build. Chun kept me informed throughout the process, since Sarah was a primary witness, and I had initiated the rescue that exposed operation. The evidence was overwhelming. Computer records, victim statements, detailed surveillance files, financial transactions showing ransom payments, and the physical layout of the warehouse itself all proved this was a systematic kidnapping ring. The 3 suspects were charged with federal kidnapping, extortion, racketeering, and conspiracy. The case went to federal court in Phoenix. Sarah testified about being taken from our driveway, transported to the warehouse, and locked inside a cage while they prepared ransom messages they intended to send to me. Other victims told similar stories. Some had been held for days while their families desperately tried to gather enough money to buy their freedom. Prosecutors laid out everything we had seized during the SWAT raid. Photos of the warehouse setup, the detailed victim files, the ransom communications, financial records showing more than $2 million collected from terrified families. The case was airtight. All 3 defendants were convicted on every federal charge. Richard Briggs was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. Jason Whitmore received 28 years. Stephen Torres was given 25 years. The judge called it one of the most cold-blooded and calculated criminal operations she had ever seen. "You used the appearance of HOA enforcement to kidnap innocent people from their homes," the judge said during sentencing. "You held them captive, threatened them, and extorted their families. You preyed on the public's trust and authority. These sentences reflect both the severity of your crimes and the need to permanently protect society from you." Every victim's family received restitution through asset forfeiture. The FBI seized properties, bank accounts, and investments the criminals had purchased with ransom money. Sarah and I also received compensation for the trauma, though no amount of money could erase the fear that day. A month after sentencing, Commander Hayes called me into his office. "Parker, I want to talk about what happened," he said. "You mobilized an entire SWAT team to rescue your wife. That was the right call. But I need to know you understand the responsibility that comes with that kind of response capability." I nodded. "I understand, sir," I said. "If it had been any other citizen kidnapped by fake authorities, I would have wanted the same response. It being Sarah made it personal, but the tactical response was appropriate for any kidnapping." Hayes agreed. "That raid shut down an operation that victimized 17 families across 3 states, he said. "Your quick action and the team's execution saved lives. But it also reminded me that the power we have must be used responsibly every single time." I agreed. Sarah and I still live in Tucson, but we moved to a different neighborhood, one with real security and a legitimate HOA that we thoroughly verified before buying. She installed a personal safety alarm that connects directly to my phone and to the department. Every SWAT team member knows that if Sarah's alarm ever goes off, we respond immediately. The warehouse where she had been held was eventually demolished. Before tearing it down, the FBI used it for training exercises, teaching agents how to recognize and dismantle kidnapping operations disguised as legitimate businesses. Now the lot sits empty, a quiet reminder what happens when criminals believe they can prey on innocent people by abusing false authority. My team still talks about that raid. It was textbook execution under extreme pressure, with personal stakes involved. Rodriguez later told me he was proud of how I maintained discipline, even though it was my wife we were rescuing. "You trusted the team and the training," he said. "That's what SWAT operators do. If anyone ever tries to detain or arrest you while claiming HOA authority, understand this clearly. That is kidnapping. Real HOAs do not have arrest powers. They cannot detain you, handcuff you, or transport you anywhere. If someone attempts it, resist verbally, demand real police immediately, and treat it as a kidnapping attempt. Use any law enforcement connections you have. These criminals rely on confusion and fear to succeed. Fight back immediately. Document everything. And if you have the authority and resources to mobilize a response like we did, use it to save lives and shut these operations down for good. Your family is worth protecting with every tool available. If you or someone you know has experienced a fake authority kidnapping attempt, share this story. Stay aware. Stay prepared.